Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Hugh Hewitt inside the ReliefFactor.com studio. America held hostage by Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, day 3. You heard me yesterday. If you heard me yesterday, I have never been this exercised. I remain exercised. I watched the whole Senate debate yesterday. Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are ravaging the country. They are destroying jobs. They hint, oh, we might have a deal. And then Nancy Pelosi rolls out a demand for mandatory social diversity corporate boards. And Tom Cotton, who will be my guest later, listed 10 absurdities of her demands. Have nothing to do with businesses closing, employees losing their jobs, the stock market tanking. Now, the market may have a very good day because yesterday you called the Senate. 202-224-3121 and screamed. Yesterday, John Thune, Lamar Alexander, people who never lose their cool, me, lost their cool because we do not like the country being held hostage by Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi for very beige political reasons. It is an indelible stain on them. Never forget. Never forget that they held the country hostage and the economy, and they cost millions of jobs. I hope they come back. I don't know that they will. They are crippling the economy purposefully in an attempt to implement the radical left-wing vision of a small group of radical left-wing House members who have the septuagenarian Nancy Pelosi scared to death. She won't talk to the media. She won't talk to anyone. She issues demands which keeps AOC and the squad happy, and they're scared to death, and they're holding the country hostage. But they are getting pummeled. And you will not forget in November, Joe Biden is disappeared. He will not lead his party, of which he will be the nominee. He will not step up and say, stop this destructive action. But yesterday, by the way, a little bit of news just to make you happy. I've got a great show today. Great show. We're going to talk to the Surgeon General of the United States. We're going to talk with Senators Cotton and Scott and McSally, Governor Hogan, great journalist David Drucker and Byron York. And you should know that yesterday it was announced, I have agreed with Salem Media Corporation to continue this show through December of 2028, at least. Through 3 more presidential elections, at least. Through December of 2028. Called a contract extension. We've been noodling it for months. Inked it up before the crisis. Released news of it yesterday. You can trust me. I'm going to be here. And all my legislator friends out there, you know I am never not going to forget, Democrats, what you did yesterday and Sunday. Never. Not once in the next 8 years will I let people forget that you held America hostage during the coronavirus crisis. Never. How bad did it get yesterday? Susan Collins, the most even-tempered and effective and influential legislator of the Senate, often the deciding vote, took to the floor of the Senate to speak her piece about the torpedoing of the bipartisan rescue package. As I said yesterday, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and the Senate Democrats shot out the wheels on the fire truck. Susan Collins was shut down by Chuck Schumer. Listen to cut 26 as Susan Collins cannot believe it.
Unbelievably, the Democratic leader objected to my even being able to speak this morning. Is that what we've come to? The Democratic leader objected to our convening at 9 o'clock this morning so that we could begin working in earnest. Is that what we've come to? The fact is we have been working on a bipartisan effort through task force with both Republicans and Democrats, making very good progress and putting together a comprehensive package, the third package that we have dealt with. This one is to address and prevent the economic devastation that is being caused by this virus. We don't have another day. We don't have another hour. We don't have another minute to delay acting. I have talked with businesses all over my state, small mom and pop businesses like a diner, a third-generation diner operated by the Simonis family in Lewiston, Maine. For the first time ever, they have had to close their doors. As Linda Simonis told me through tears yesterday, this is the first time ever we've been unemployed. Our son is unemployed. Our friends who have worked with us at this diner for years are unemployed. And we have a very good plan that we've worked in a bipartisan way. Marco Rubio and I on the Republican side, Ben Cardin and Jean Shaheen in very good faith on the Democratic side, that would help these small businesses and keep their employees paid, keep their employees getting paychecks. How can that possibly be controversial? How can any of us want to see millions of Americans lose their paychecks, their health insurance, their contributions to their retirement plans? We have a package that's part of this broader legislation. As the majority leader pointed out just yesterday, had we invoked cloture, that's not the end of the process. There still could have been 30 hours for us to refine.
You know, I want to say something at this point. As I've explained to you before, I am the CEO of the Nixon Foundation. So I'm taking myself out of the calculation. I'm doing the best I can by my employees. But I have been following a few organizations of which I am a member in California and in D.C. All of them are closed. All of them are trying very hard to keep their payrolls going. They know this is a temporary shutdown. It might last a week more, 2 weeks more. It depends upon the efficacy of interventions. I'll talk about that with the Surgeon General. It depends upon the efficacy of the suppression. It depends on many factors, but we need to get restarted as soon as possible. All of us would like to keep our employees on the payroll. All of the employees would like to keep getting paid and keep their health insurance. And Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are holding them all hostage because we don't know what's going to happen. And so you hang on through all your cash reserves, and then you have no choice. And then you're Susan Collins' diner friends in Lewiston, Maine. And no customers, no revenue, no rent payment. You shut the doors. That's what Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are doing. That's what Senate Democrats are doing. And when Chris Murphy, who answered me on Twitter, got up and said, we've been left out of the process, that was not true. And they all know it. They all know it. Chuck Grassley was on the show. I'll talk with Cotton today. I'll talk with Senator Scott, who may have been shut out because he was self-quarantined. But they did this bipartisan bill all weekend long, and Nancy Pelosi blew it up. Here's Ted Cruz on the Senate floor, cut number 24 yesterday.
It was one party, the Democratic Party, saying to this chamber and the American people, hell no. We won't even take this up and discuss it. At a time of crisis, at a time when people are dying, that's wrong. That's shameful. When we awakened this morning, following the Democrats' obstruction, worldwide, there were 372,563 reported cases of the coronavirus. In the hours since then, just today, there have been an additional 23,352 cases reported today. While the Democrats are blocking the bill, 23,000 new cases today. In the United States, when we started this morning, there were 35,224 cases this morning. Right now, as of the latest numbers, there are 41,708 cases in the United States today. That means we've had an additional 6,484 cases today while the Democrats are blockading. And by the way, where are the Democrats?
Ted Cruz was ripping the bark off of them. Good for you, Senator Cruz. President Trump just tweeted The world market for face masks and ventilators is crazy. We are helping the states get equipment, but it's not easy. We just got 400 ventilators for New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, work beginning on 4 hospitals in New York, millions of different types of items coming. The country is mobilized. The Democrats are holding us hostage. Never forget. Everybody is working on it. Governors, New York, Democrats, Republicans, everybody, but Senate Democrats. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt in the ReliefFactor.com studio. Ward Carroll, who's a must-follow on Twitter. Ward Carroll, that's it. He's with the United States Navy Institute, former fighter pilot. Posted Naval Academy midshipmen test positive. And there are 2 more Pacific Fleet sailors with the virus. You'll remember in early February, I was talking with Acting Secretary of the Navy, Maudley, about was the fleet ready? And it was. I think the fleet's going to be better prepared for this because of Acting Secretary Maudley than any one other part of the world, of the economy, of the nation. And I'm glad. The fleet is our forward defense. Our carriers, at least 2 of them are at sea, maybe 3. Many other ships at sea, and they're ready. They're prepared. The Acting Secretary Maudley is really a superstar, as is the entire national security team. Secretary of State Pompeo made a quick trip to Afghanistan, came back. National Security Advisor O'Brien on top of this. You never see them. They're not part of the Daily Show at the White House because they don't do the health. They do the national security, and we are on watch. We are on watch. We are well protected. God bless the men and women of the American military and the intelligence community. Doing a great job. Let me tell you about gold for a moment. I've received a few calls from many of you who have thanked me because in January I warned you about this, and we're going to compile the whole list. It doesn't matter right now. You know I was right. You know I told you about this. But we're going to get a comprehensive list of interviews and commentaries and warnings, and many of you rebalanced your accounts. You moved some of your stocks into gold. Gold is up this morning. It's going to keep going up. The craziness of last week has settled out. As I speak, gold is up 5% this morning. At 1637, it was below 1500. I told you it was a great entry point 2 weeks ago. It was just market disconnect because of turbulence. It will continue to be a very solid asset, and Birch Gold Group is the place to move part of your IRA. That is, never sell stocks in a panic. Do not do that. But you might have had bonds, which have done very well. You might want to diversify those right now. Go to hughgold.com, hughgold.com, or text my name to 47, Hugh, H-U-G-H, to 474747. If you want to buy physical gold, they have limits. You got to buy a certain amount. Doesn't make any sense for them to send 1 coin or 1 ounce. They usually do it in 3-ounce allocations, which would be, 3 times 1650, whatever that is. It moves around. But get information. I trust Birch Gold. That's where I'm going back to. Text Hugh, H-U-G-H, to 474747. Get a free info kit on diversifying. Also want to tell you we passed $55,000 in donations to my Food for the Poor campaign. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In the middle of a crisis, Americans are still stepping up. Sometimes 10, sometimes 100, sometimes $1,000. Clean water, food. We've got nothing. I went looking for TP yesterday. Had to go to 3 stores. Found it. I knew it was out there. I didn't hoard. I just bought 4 rolls. That's America. We don't do that. But in some places, there's nothing. Guatemala is one of them. Here's Food for the Poor's on a tree, Parmalee, saying how it transforms the lives of mothers to have clean water so they don't have to walk hours each way just to bring their children clean, safe water.
Walking at 4 o'clock in the morning to get water. Water is heavy. They can only bring back so much. And to think of the news that there's going to be a community source of water close to them. What will it do for her body, for her family, for the future to have access to water?
You can't imagine that. Americans are worried about, can I get fresh oranges? Can I get TP? What about hand wipes? They just need water. And you can help them. The Feed Starving Children banner at hughhewitt.com is at the top. $320 feeds a family of 4 for a year. Clean water for life because they bring clean water to the village. Or you can call 855-359-4063. 855-359-HELP. One of the reasons I signed on for another 8 years was Salem. Because I want to keep helping Food for the Poor. I want to help great organizations across this country like honorboundcoffee.com. I want to help. We help. I also want to help get the Democrats to wake up. They cannot hold America hostage. More after the break when I talk with Representative Michael Waltz. Stay tuned. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Thank you so much for listening to the Hugh Hewitt Show. I mentioned in the last segment that I have agreed with Salem Media to stay on the air through December of 28. That's 3 more presidential cycles, including this fall. That's how I like my contracts to end after a presidential election. I jokingly tell people at that point I expect a Republican who's a friend to be in the White House and make me ambassador to Bermuda. My goal in life is to be ambassador to Bermuda. There's my wonderful lukewarm coffee. But in the meantime, I do this so that I can tell you people what's going on. What's going on right now is the most disgraceful moment in the history of the United States Congress since the Civil War and Reconstruction. I do not. I've often seen them do dumb things. I've often seen them rise to the occasion. I've seen them debate fiercely. I have never seen a party hold America hostage. And the Democrats are holding America hostage. And people are losing their jobs and their businesses and their life savings as a result. Markets may rebound today if Chuck Schumer relents and if Nancy Pelosi relent. They're getting hammered. Everybody knows. Outside of the little tiny universe of the 1 million people that watch CNN and the 2 million people that watch MSNBC, everybody knows. 1% of America thinks, oh, the Democrats are great. Oh, they're just doing a great job. Everybody knows they are holding America hostage. And everybody knows there was bipartisanship through Sunday afternoon when Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi said, kill it. Everybody knows. And when I hear them roll through their talking points, slush fund, lack of controls, no oversight, I know what America's businesses are doing. They're laying people off and the people are getting laid off. No, it's because of the Democrats in the Congress. Everybody knows. They can run, but they will never hide from this stain on their legislative record. Never, never, never. So I get up every morning eager to bring you calm, focused, informative news, to have civil conversations across the spectrum, to deal with all without friend, fear or favor towards anyone. Tough questions, but serious, courteous. Always the same show. I've been doing the same show since 1990. Since 1990. I started on AM KFI 640. In fact, new affiliates are all across the country. Let me take a moment and tell you why I'm doing this. I've been in broadcast since 1990. But to go back, and I'm a Buckeye. I'm from Warren, Ohio. Born and raised, Catholic educated. I am an evangelical Roman Catholic Presbyterian. That means 2 banks to 1 river, and I live on both sides. Go to Mass on Saturday night when you can. I've got a dispensation now, and the churches are closed inside the Beltway. But I'm a good Catholic when, well, I am a good Catholic right now. It's just like I can't do much other than go to CICDC.org. That's the Catholic Information Center, D.C. It's the closest tabernacle to the White House. It's the center of, really, I think, serious Catholicism in Washington, D.C. And you can check it out, CICDC.org. Then I have a great Presbyterian pastor inside the Beltway, terrific man of wisdom and a great congregation. And I've got theologian friends across the country like Mark Roberts who keep me smart. I read their stuff. But I grew up Catholic. I am Catholic, educated by Catholic nuns, Catholic priests, deeply Catholic. I'm just Catholic. You can take the boy out of the church sometimes, but you never take the church out of the boy. And you never, no matter what my bride is a secular show, but it's going to just flow out that I'm Catholic. And I went to Catholic high school, and then I went to Harvard. If you've not listened to this show before, graduated in 1978. 2 best friends, Dan Poneman, Mark Guerin, Democrats. They're wrong. They're not rotten. They're my best friends from college. They're still my best friends, along with Roop, Billy, handful of people, Robert. Handful of people are close. You know, you got to have friends or your life is not good. But I've been married to the fetching Mrs. Hewitt since 1982. Got the date right. Proposed to her on her birthday, so I would never forget either of them. We will be married, doing the quick math here, 38 years in July. 38 years she's put up with this. We're blessed with 3 children. We got 3 tiny little grandkids. I got a long way to go in my professional life, God willing, and the creek don't rise, but I want the country to be, the country was so good, so strong, so vibrant 6 weeks ago. And if you listen to this show, you know I was telling you it was coming because I've been on a public health commission for 17 of the last 20 years. The Orange County Children and Families Commission. I went through H1N1 once a month this was public service. I just did it. I go back to the biography. I left Harvard. Went to work for Richard Nixon for 2 years and David Eisenhower, but first David, then over to RN's team as a writer. Then I went to law school after he moved to New York, and I went to New York with him. And after law school, on to the D.C. Circuit into the White House Counsel's Office, the Department of Justice. From there, I've been general counsel of 2 agencies, the NEH, small office, the OPM, big office. Then I was nominated by President Reagan, confirmed by the Senate as deputy director. My old boss, Dick Hauser, is on the treadmill right now. Faster, Dick, faster. Go faster, get the heart rate up. And then I left town at the end of Reagan time. We went back to California to take care of my in-laws, both of whom are with the Lord now. And President Nixon said, would you build the Nixon Library for me? And I did. Happy to do it. Stayed 2 years, left. Back now. One of the hats I wear is as director of the CEO of the Nixon Foundation, not the library. We support the library. Got 40 people working for me. That's why I'm an employer. I'm a CEO when I take my radio hat off. Here I'm just talking, and a reporter and a journalist and an analyst and a political commentator. But after I got done with the library, KFI Radio, Cox Station, AM 640, I became the voice of reason in the West on the weekends with Bill Handel and Laura Schlesinger and the one, the only, the wrong, Bill Press. We had a great weekend lineup, did that for a few years. Did 10 years of KCET television, nightly news and public broadcast. Nightly news, 10 years. I practiced law this whole time, by the way. I've never believed in one career. Platform career. 4 different jobs at once is my norm. And practiced law for 30 years, retired 2 years ago from the firm of Larson O'Brien. Robert O'Brien is now the national advisor and a very good one. Just Judge Larson and a merry band of, 50 lawyers. We left Aaron Fox, opened up the LA office, doing gangbusters, but I just could not juggle everything, retired from the law. I've been a tenured professor of law at Chapman University since it opened in 1996, teaching con law. I'm on leave this year because it's the presidential year. Just can't teach and run the library and run this show. But in 2000, Ed Atzinger was the CEO and co-founder, along with Stu Epperson of Salem, asked me if I'd do a national show. Russ Hout, instrumental in that. Radio blogger, the guy who doesn't produce the show daily, was instrumental in that. And we opened up this show. Anthony, Dwayne has been not working on this show since day one. Adam Youngman, who's no longer a young man, has been working on this show since day 8. We had one interim engineer, poor Matt Cunningham. We love you, Matt, but you couldn't engineer your way. I had to repair the whole studio over the last day because we had a power surge and everything fried. And I've been down here with my screwdrivers and my wiring.
That's what Matt did? Matt was an engineer. Is that what he did?
I'm not sure what Matt did for 7 days till Adam showed up, who has been faithfully manning the board and putting up with Dwayne not working for all his time. And then we've had, I think General Ben is about 55 on the board, but we finally decided we'd get professional, and he's been there for 5 years now. But just the 3 of us. We no longer do interns. Danielle does the booking. Diana does the scheduling. It's a merry band of 5 people that run this show. And we've done it for 20 years. And we're going to do it for another 8. And after that, I don't know. Bennett went longer than that. I don't know. I'm unwilling to say. I really do want to be ambassador to Bermuda.
You do like to nudge for things. You do like to help make policy. I'm not sure you're going to ever give this up.
No, if I can go to Bermuda and help the Bermudans, I like Bermuda. As soon as this COVID thing is done.
When's the last time you were in Bermuda?
Well, it's been 10 years, but I'll tell you what, we had to, postpone our cruise for a year. which is deeply disappointing. We're not going to France right now. I mean, come on.
We're going next year, though.
We're going next year. So there's a hole in my bucket, dear Ida, dear Ida. There's a hole in the bucket, dear Ida. There's a hole. As soon as we open this country up again, and Bermuda, the fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I are getting on a plane, and we're going to Bermuda. That's what I'm doing. If there's any place you want to go to Bermuda.
Does she know this?
No. And she never listens to the show. She's in the interim, she got to go help my poor daughter. They've closed the school. Moms out there, I know. Gosh, my prayers are with you. This is another reason I'm so mad at the Democrats. Do you know how disruptive this has been on everyone's life? People who had kids in school, little ones, middle ones, big ones. I think probably junior high school kids are the worst because that's the only thing I would never teach them in Sunday school. Never teach them in Sunday school. Taught infants through grade 5, taught high school students. I have always said that is a bridge too far. Would not do it. Wouldn't be prudent. But Sunday school matters a lot. But right now, there are millions of moms and dads who are dealing with kids at home, and they're looking at a break in their education, their formal education. They're not homeschooling trained. Of March, April, May, June, July, and August. 5 months. The consequences for educational development are they may just have to repeat the entire year. I think the country's got to think about that. Just a do-over. Everybody back 1 year. Just think about that. First time you've heard it, I know. That's why I'm me. I come up with stuff like this. I was talking to a senator last night. In this bill, because of what has happened, you all got to tell them this. In this bill, everyone should have access to their tax-advantaged accounts to make withdrawals at a flat tax rate of 10% because they need it to keep afloat. They need to save their businesses or they're not going to have a retirement. This is especially, most of America is small business. They have retirement accounts. Those business owners have got to be able to get in there, and those individuals got to be able to get in there and use that money without a penalty, without paying regular tax, maybe no tax at all if you want a stimulus to stop all stimuluses. Open up the tax. There are trillions of dollars in tax-advantaged accounts. Let it out. But that's why I'm here. That's why I signed on till 2028 so that Dwayne can continue not to work and you can continue to hear the voice of sweet reason, the voice of reason from the West and now inside the Beltway every single day. And I hope I keep telling you about Relief Factor. There it is. Best sponsor ever, other than Hillsdale. There it is. My wonderful, I got to go for a long walk today. Raining, I know. Lukewarm coffee. In the West Coast studio, I've got a coffee warmer, thanks to Donna. But here in the East Coast studio, it's lukewarm coffee and Relief Factor. It's my morning burst of happiness. Because I know I'm going to feel better because it's support for the temporary relief of the minor aches and pains that come from working with Dwayne and walking. Dwayne is a burden that I carry around. But you might have a lot of new burdens. And if you're doing different exercises because you can't use your gym, please go to relieffactor.com. $19.95. $19.95. Stay tuned, America. I'll be right back. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Fresh on the heels of the announcement that I am staying with Salem on the air through December of 28, my guests are falling over themselves saying, oh my God, I didn't sign up to do a slot once a week until 2028. Selena Zito's in. I'm not sure Drucker's in. David M. Drucker of the Washington Examiner, been faithfully holding down a slot weekly for many years. David, did you see I just signed on through 2028?
I saw it. I'm disappointed because now I have to keep getting up early on Tuesdays.
That's what I like.
I mean,
That's
honestly,
what I like to hear.
go home.
Are we going to get a deal today? Is America going to be held hostage by the Democrats for day 4?
I mean, look, I don't want to make predictions because I am legitimately surprised that they didn't let the bill move forward and continue to negotiate whatever additions, changes, concessions, whether they're extraneous or not extraneous, that they wanted moving forward. You can continue to do that as the Senate bill is up for debate. It has to go through a Democratic House. So this is not like, I remember back when all Republicans had under Obama for the first 5 or 6 years was, for the first couple of years, was the filibuster in the Senate. They were in the minority in the House and the Senate. All they could do was hold things up and do everything they could in that manner, and that's all they have. But here, Democrats have a really good lever. They have the House of Representatives, and so, they might have been assuming that if it gets through the Senate, the pressure would be too great to hold it up in the House to make changes to the bill. So I'm not quite sure exactly what they're doing. I mean, there are some, whether people agree or not, there are some theoretically legitimate concerns that they have, but then there are other things they're trying to add to the bill. But I don't know if voters are going to be that thrilled with it if this takes too long and they ever find out.
Yeah, David, I think they already. I believe greatly in how the speed of information in the modern age travels. And Tom Cotton listed the 10 stupidest things in the House bill that they want to add to Phase 3. And they're so astonished, like board diversity on boards. All right. Got nothing to do with saving jobs this week. They know the voters know. Democrats are mad. They will be indelibly stained. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Senate and House Democrat, indelibly stained because they held America hostage when people were losing their jobs. I do not think I have to raise my voice anymore. I think the whole country knew by yesterday at noon what had happened. I've never seen the Senate like that. Have you?
No. I mean, rarely. It's not something you see often, that's for sure. I mean, I don't quite understand the political calculation here. Crises like this, and this is an unusual crisis, is not where you try and enact all sorts of other policy goals and changes.
No, there's been 9/11. There's been 2008. I've been doing this since 1990. I've been outraged 3 times. Clarence Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh, and now. In 2008 and 9/11, national crisis, I was all for one and one for all. Put down your red and your blue, put down your sword and your shield, get together, and they did. This is the first time that outrage has intersected with crisis. It's the first time that we are at that intersection, and I don't know what the political consequences are. I think it might be the extinction of a lot of Democrats.
Well, I just think this thing's moving too fast to know for certain what the politics are going to be, especially because it's hard to know exactly where the crisis is moving itself, let alone the politics. I mean, I do think there are a couple things to keep in mind. I think, for Democrats, one of the things they might want to remember is the last time they had a battle over general policy related to a crisis, they lost. And that was the battle over, whether Homeland Security personnel in that then new department were going to be unionized, or at least some of them. And Democrats ended up suffering in midterm elections in 2002. We're in a presidential election. Things are a little bit different now. I also think that, this is one of those cases where you wonder how much of this has to do with, in terms of being able to shut this down and move this along, the fact that they think that politically they can get away with this because they think that eventually all of this will fall back on the president. And Mnuchin is the one directing these negotiations and not him.
I don't know what your opinion is. I watch and I listen to everything, and there is no way the president is going to emerge from this weaker than he was. I turn off Twitter. I just watch the screen. He's doing a great job on the screen. Journalists do not seem to understand what he's trying to say, which is that people's health can be harmed if the economy goes. I mean, they won't be able to buy food. They won't be able to buy drugs. They won't be able to go out. They won't be able to exercise. They seem willfully indifferent to understanding, David. Last 30 seconds to you.
Well, no, look, I do think, and I have been saying this, that without some sort of timeline that people can count on, some sort of certainty, that the questions about when people can go back to work are going to get louder. I think what the administration has to balance is that if they decide it's time to go back to work and people don't feel safe, the economy will not take off the way it could, and these are the concerns the administration has to balance.
David M. Drucker, follow him on Twitter. 8 years, he just committed to it. Wonderful. Good reporting from inside the Beltway. We've got Byron York, Senator Rick Scott, Senator Tom Cotton. Next hour, the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Jerome Adams, in hour 3. Along with Governor Larry Hogan, Senator Martha McSally. It's everything you expect and you get every day right here on The Hugh Hewitt Show. Morning, Glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Greetings to everyone. I'm inside the Beltway in the ReliefFactor.com studio. I am Hugh Hewitt. It is America held hostage by the Democrats, day 3. I'm joined by Byron York. Byron, I said earlier I've been doing this since 1990. I've been through 9/11 and 2008. Those were crises. I've been through periods of intense political stupidity and debate. Those have been, political stalemates. Never have the two intersected. It's the first time we've had a crisis that has been partisanized, if I can invent a word, and the Democrats did it. Why? What do they not know everybody knows what they're doing?
Well, first of all, I'm not privy to the inner thoughts of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. But I believe that they think they were winning. They were winning the coronavirus battle. Now, you might say that given what coronavirus is, there shouldn't be a political battle over it, but I think they felt there was one, and they were winning. They were looking at some of their favorite media outlets and seeing wall-to-wall criticism of President Trump. They thought people were appalled by the press conferences, and I think they felt they were winning on this. So they pushed their luck, and they started adding all sorts of stuff to this relief bill. And by the way, the quote attributed to Representative Clyburn, that basically this is a great opportunity for us to enact our agenda. I mean, that is the kind of thinking that has gone on at times of crisis in the past. This is a more directly life and death crisis to a lot of Americans, and I think they would be appalled to see that thinking applied to it, but there it is.
Now, Byron, I am also, in my other capacity, an employer. I'm the CEO of a foundation that employs 40 people. I have been waiting for the text that depends upon admissions to our museum and events at our museum, and they're shuttered by order of the government. So I've been waiting to see what the government will do before we decide what to do with our employees. And there are, I think, hundreds of thousands of small businesses that are exactly in the same position, and we are being held hostage by Chuck Schumer, who would not advance the bill to the debate. I don't believe any employee laid off this week will not know that it wasn't Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi's fault. They will attribute their layoffs, rightly, justly, to Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and every Democrat in the country. Do they know that?
It's interesting. Even some mainstream press reporting on Monday morning, Sunday night, Monday morning, said Democrats block virus relief bill. And then I think Democrats were very angry, called maybe the appropriate people at some of these press outlets, and these headlines were changed to things like partisan wrangling blocks virus relief bill. But I think they had it right the first time. It's pretty obvious. And the sheer amazement you're seeing from Republicans on the Hill, in the Senate, at what Democrats are doing, at stopping this, at putting sort of Green New Deal add-ons into it, at claiming there is a slush fund. And, if you follow people on the left and really intense never-Trumpers, you'll see that they're now saying that the Trump administration is stopping this or wants to get America back to work because the president is taking a beating at his hotels and golf resorts. And that's the reason Trump is impatient with the 15-day shutdown and believes America should, amazingly enough, get back to work.
But, Byron, I believe the 20-odd never-Trumpers who have access to the media far out of proportion to their influence do not matter. And the 1% that watches CNN and the 2% that watch MSNBC, they do not matter. The country is watching the president, and they are hearing, not just from me, but from social media and from other talk show hosts, etc., that is all a lie. That when Chris Murphy of Connecticut stands up and said we were not involved in the process, they heard Chuck Grassley earlier say he spent all weekend with Ron Wyden, or maybe it was John Thune with Ron. I can't remember. They worked all weekend in a bipartisan fashion. They heard Susan Collins on the floor. She never gets upset, talking about how she and Marco Rubio and Jean Shaheen, and I can't remember who the fourth one was, had worked all weekend together to put together a bipartisan package. Everybody knows. This is the new world in which we live, and they can go on with their favorite spinning top. They can go find Nicole. They can find someone to spin, and it will not matter.
Actually,
do they not get it? We understand what's happening.
I disagree with you a little bit about the not matter part, because excuse me, it matters if the tiny number of never Trumpers are not heard by many people. But what if one of those people is the Speaker of the House? Think back to the impeachment. December 18th, the House impeaches President Trump, and then everybody's really weirded out and surprised by Nancy Pelosi saying, well, we're not going to send the articles over to the Senate. And thereupon came weeks of them withholding the articles. Well, that came because Pelosi saw an argument by somebody on CNN.
Larry Tribe.
Then kind of
Lawrence Tribe.
Seconded in an op-ed by Larry Tribe. I can't remember who it was. Somebody else floated it a little before that on CNN. She sees this, and so this does have an influence. Now, as far as the general public, we've been in this crisis long enough to look at polls, and the president's job approval rating has been quite steady. It's down maybe a point or two from that point right after acquittal, where he went up to 46 approval, which for him is good. But it's still in the 44 something range. So the president's job approval has not changed at all here. So you have kind of an echo chamber on the left. Perhaps some very influential, powerful elected officials are part of that. They listen to it. They think that everybody is saying something when they see something on MSNBC. And that's why I believe they took the actions that they've taken in the past couple of days.
Now, I think you're onto something, but I think it's broken down. I watch the presidents and the task force now without Twitter, because Twitter is a weird universe. It's bizarro land, as DC Comics would say. It's not what America tunes in, they watch, and they say, okay, I understand what he's trying to say. He'd like to have both the economy start and social distancing. Can we do that? He's a cheerleader. He once told me on this show he wanted to be a cheerleader. Google that sometime. Cheerleader Donald Trump. He's trying to keep people's spirits up. And, of course, Trump haters hate him on Twitter, and the country doesn't care about them. They're destroying their own credibility. Tell me I'm wrong if you believe I'm wrong, but I think they're getting narrower and narrower, and they are forever the Democrats in Congress, the commentators on social media who do not understand that the country is on fire, are indelibly staining themselves, Byron.
Well, I think they are becoming more desperate, and when you do have a situation like this, which is this is not a debt ceiling extension bill.
Exactly.
This is dealing with something really, really big, and there are emotions involved. And I think that they have. I think they've gone further than they've ever gone before. But I think I'm going to throw one more factor in, which is nervousness about the, quote, leader of the Democratic Party. In an election year, when the party is out of power in the White House, the presidential nominee is the leader of that party. And Joe Biden does not have the nomination yet, but he all but got it. He's going to be the nominee unless some act of God intervenes. And so he's the leader of the Democratic Party, and he's really been kind of AWOL on this. As a matter of fact, Democrats are seeing another Democrat, Governor Cuomo of New York, coming out and giving briefings every day and taking action and doing this and doing that. And they've been seeing the presumptive nominee of the party hunkered down at his house in Maryland holding virtual fundraisers. And so I think there's some certain nervousness about the position of the Democratic Party in the presidential race, even as the Senate tries to deal with this bill. I
agree. It's very disconcerting to Democrats, and I will tell you, if Joe Biden falters in any way, they now know who they're going to. They're going to Andrew Cuomo. Write it down. I mean, if he falters in any way, they will go to Andrew Cuomo. Do you agree with me, Byron?
Yeah, I think a number of Democrats have said or thought, if this had happened last year, Andrew Cuomo would be the nominee. But they're seeing someone who is, by the way, in power. He has an office, unlike the former vice president, who's in power and doing things. And I think it's making them deeply nervous about the man they have effectively chosen to be their nominee.
Write it down. I was wrong about Bernie in January and right about the virus. And I think Byron and I are both right about who they go to if there is faltering by Joe Biden. If he fails to inspire confidence, if he for any reason withdraws, they're not going to go to Bernie. They're going to go to Andrew Cuomo. Don't go anywhere, America. Byron York on Twitter. Thank you, Byron. I'll be right back. Senators Cotton and Rick Scott join me this hour on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Pam, you're live. Mics are hot.
I'm ready to go.
Set it up. And we're going.
Good morning. I hope you and your family are doing well in these difficult and anxious times. I'm glad the President has finally activated the National Guard. Now we need the armed forces and the National Guard to help with hospital capacity, supplies, and logistics. We need to activate the Reserve Corps of doctors and nurses and beef up the number of responders dealing with these crush of cases. And in addition to that, we have to make sure that we are in a position that we are. Well, let me go to the second thing. I've spoken enough of that. We can put politics aside and meet the moment like governors all across this nation are doing. Governor Mike DeWine in Ohio, Governor Larry Hogan in Maryland, Governor Charlie Parker in Massachusetts, Gavin
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt. Inside the ReliefFactor.com studio in the Beltway, America held hostage by Democrats, day 3. Will they let it go? That brings me to the AndrewandTodd.com business story of the day, because they are connected. AndrewandTodd.com are Andrew Del Rey and Todd Avakian. They are with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. They lend money to people who need to refinance their house or buy a house or buy a rental property or buy a shopping center. They're lenders. They're good lenders. They are trustworthy lenders. You can call them right now at 888-888-1172. I talk to them every couple of days because the markets have been so screwy for 10 days. And they have said one piece of advice. If you're going to need cash out of your house, you can't lock in a rate right now because rates are so funky, they're really not going to do it yet. But you can get right up to the line so that when the markets stabilize, it could be as early as this week, you're going to get a great rate. But put your paperwork in. 888-888-1172. You can buy a house. You can acquire a rental property. Refinancing is really hard right now because the rates went up, because the markets just don't know how to read price signals. But they are not taking advantage of anyone. They're just saying, wait, get all your paperwork in, trust us, and I do. They've done every loan I've ever done in the East Coast, and I started using them on the West Coast, and thousands of you trust Andrew Del Rey and Todd Avakian, and you should. But what you need to do is go to their website, answer a couple of questions, and be ready. Because you're going to be able to get money out of your house. Values of homes aren't going to fall. People have assets. Lots of wealth still there. I mean, my goodness. When I look at the markets and I say to myself, some people who prepared are very, very well off. You know, if you owned Amazon, it's the only stock I own. People know that is Amazon. I think it's the new substitute for gold. Gold and Amazon are like gold standard. Amazon in the pre-market trading this morning, and you know it fluctuates throughout the day. I don't know where it'll be whenever you hear this. Who knows? But it was. It's going to be a rocket ship. I think. Don't ever invest on. What do I know about investments? I just tell you what I do. In the pre-market's up $60. It's at 1902, and down from its high of 2150. But I think it's going to be back above its high. Bonds are up. If you've got assets, if you got a house, it has not lost a lot of its value. Demand may have dropped, but not in places like Alexandria, Virginia, where my friend Gordon Wood can't answer the phone. Can't answer the phone. Too many people are trying to buy a house. They're moving to HQ2. Same thing in Seattle. So there are two economies now. A completely devastated one waiting for the Democrats to help them. They're held hostage. And one that's thriving. There are two economies in America. We got to bring them back together, and they will come together. But what you should know on the economic story of the day is that overnight, because other governments are not being held hostage by their legislators like the Democrats are holding us hostage, the Japanese stock market went up 7%. 7%. The English stock market, even with a lockdown order, went up 4%. The German stock market went up 6%. Oil went up 5%. Gold went up 7%. Markets, except in the United States. Yesterday was a bad day in the United States. The Dow was off 582 points thanks to Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. The NASDAQ was down. The S&P was down thanks to Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and the stupid political games and the hostage-taking they've engaged in, instead of rushing the fire truck aid to the economy. I don't know if they'll do it again today. I just don't know. Call them. 202-224-3121. Voice your displeasure in a civil, sustained, firm manner with Chuck Schumer and every Democrat you know. But do get ready to refinance and get the money you need from your home. 888-888-1172. Connects you to AndrewandTodd.com. Joe Biden took to the home theater yesterday. Not a great, inspiring start. Cut number 25.
Pam, you're live. Mics are hot.
Am I ready to go?
Set it up.
Rubbing his nose. Not supposed to do that.
Good morning. I hope you and your family
Joe
are
Biden.
doing well.
Honest to goodness, every Democrat in America wants Andrew Cuomo to be the nominee right now. And I don't blame him. They certainly don't want Chuck Pelosi or Nancy Pelosi hostage takers. Don't go anywhere, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Rick
Portions
Scott
of the
is
Hugh
next.
Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.
Welcome back, America. 33 minutes after the hour. I'm Hugh Hewitt in the ReliefFactor.com studio, joined now by United States Senator Rick Scott of Florida. Good morning, Senator. Thank you for joining me again.
So I get to go back today. I'm out of quarantine now. I get to go back and deal with these Democrats that they're clearly showing they don't care about the Americans that are getting hurt by this. I mean, nothing they've
Senator,
done so far to say they care.
Let me just set the context. I have been on the air since 1990. I have broadcast through national crises like 9/11, Katrina, the 2008 financial crisis, and I broadcast through political 9.0 earthquakes like the Thomas and Kavanaugh confirmations, the deadlock in Florida in 2000, the 2016 election. Those two tracks, crises and political meltdowns, have never intersected until today. I have never seen a political party hold America hostage like today. Never.
They don't care. This is why the Democrats should never, ever be in charge of anything, because they don't care about the American public. They care about their liberal agenda, and they're going to do everything they do. They're going to do exactly what Rahm Emanuel said. They're not going to let the crisis go to waste, and they're going to try to, put on Americans a whole bunch of their liberal policies.
Now, Senator, I'm also a CEO of a small foundation, the Nixon Foundation. I've got employees who are working from home. I've got no revenue, no admissions, no events, none. I'm like every other small business in America. What the hell are you doing, America, Congress, to make up revenue, whether it's in a loan that will be forgiven or whether it's in a loan? What are you going to do to make up revenue interruption? And the Democrats are talking about diversity on corporate boards. What in the hell are they thinking?
So think about it. There's two groups that we've got to quickly help. We've got to help the people that have lost their jobs, and a lot of it are the hourly workers, a lot of it is the tip workers, a lot of the Uber drivers, all these people. We got to quickly help them. They got to put food on the table. I remember what it was like for my mom when there was. If my mom was alive, I said this. What would she do if she just went? Because she never had any money. Went to no money. Just no money. What is she going to do? And we got to help our small businesses that employ most of Americans. And they went from revenue to no revenue. And they clearly want to take care of their employees. But let's quickly get something done here. We don't have to break the bank. We can still be fiscally responsible. But why are we going to bail out big companies? Let's focus on the small employers, and let's focus on the people that the people like my work with you that are hurting right now.
And by the way, I think everyone who gets laid off this week can thank Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. If they have no hope, if they have no revenue, I heard your colleague Susan Collins talk about a diner in Lewiston that have never closed. They've closed because we have not delivered relief.
The stories that I'm hearing from small businesses, that they had 6 restaurants, they were building a great business, and they just went to nothing. There's so many stories of these little companies, and these people are distraught, and your heart goes out to them, because when you have no money, you got kids. Golly, it's a tough life for these people right now. And then you watch the Democrats; they don't care. No, we got some liberal stuff we got to get done here, so we're going to hold everybody up. We don't want to help people. So.
Business interruption insurance is something that's valuable for small businesses, but it does not insure against a virus. The government can step in as effectively a business interruption insurance agent. Is that part of the plan?
Well, the way to do it is let small businesses. I think the right way of doing it is lend money to small businesses. They'll figure out how to spend the money the best way, and then make sure. We already have a robust unemployment system. If we need to expand it, expand it. When I left as governor of Florida, we had $4 billion in the bank. Employers have already paid into this, and so let's use that. Maybe we should expand it. If you lose, your hours are cut, your pay was cut. We can expand it that way. We have a system, and it can operate faster than any government program. So I think we ought to be doing those things as quickly as we can.
On the business side, revenue interruption is the metric that makes sense to me. If you can show me in March and April of last year you did $20,000 a month and this year you're doing nothing, then I think we ought to loan you $40,000 for those 2 months. That is, to me, simple and elegant.
The fastest way we can get money to them, I've been talking about for a week and a half, is give them a moratorium on their financial payments, their rent, their mortgages, their car payments. To give it to anybody impacted, small businesses, individuals. That will be the fastest money. It's way faster than anything government can do. So don't make them pay their credit cards for 30 or 60 days. You don't let them off the hook, but you say we'll postpone that. I was talking to one of the banking institutions yesterday, and they're doing that. They've already done it to 100. They said 115,000 customers. Thank God there's some wonderful people, wonderful companies out there that are helping people like that. But we ought to do a moratorium for 30 or 60 days on financial transactions. Mortgage,
I think that's great,
rent,
but Senator Scott, that will not help the Lewiston Diner. Senator Collins, I know you weren't in the chamber yesterday. You're out of quarantine today. Senator Collins said they've never been closed. I assume they own their own real estate. They own their own physical process. All they need is revenue. And revenue replacement is what everybody in the country needs. Revenue replacement of about the equivalent of 8% of GDP by my calculation. It's a hell of a lot of spending, but it will restart the engine of the American economy right away.
Well, we've got to figure out how we get money to small businesses quickly. But on top of that, we've got to figure out how we get the coronavirus behind us. I put out a report yesterday that just showed how fast it's growing state by state. So let's look at who's doing what, who's stopping the growth of this faster than other places. And let's start doing what they're doing. If you look at the state of Washington, it's not growing as fast as New York. So what is the state of Washington doing that's driving down the growth rate there versus New York? And let's do it. More testing. We've got to figure out what's working better. Are they using drugs differently? What are they doing to stop this? Faster?
Best practices. I'm going to talk to Surgeon General next hour. I'm going to talk to him about best practices. But I want to stay with you for a legislative moment because I've been trying to persuade a couple of your colleagues offline. There are trillions of dollars in retirement assets, liquidity, that people cannot get to because they are prohibitively expensive. 10% penalty if you're not 60 and older, and then regular income.
We should allow them to do that.
Take it out at 10% flat tax.
We've got to create liquidity right now. We got to give people, if it's their money, let them spend it.
Yeah, let me get this harpoon into you. Just an unlimited withdrawal at a 10% flat tax. You'll raise money. Everyone will use it. We will flood the country with liquidity. But Congress is it's where new ideas go to die.
Right. Well, because it's because the Democrats, it's all politics for them. They're not focused on the American public. It's all everything they do is about politics.
Well, when do you return to the chamber, Senator?
Today. So okay. I'm done. So I'll get a briefing on what happened overnight, and we'll hopefully get something. I mean, look, my goal is we've got to get something done.
Do not hold back. I thought Senator Collins being shut down by Chuck Schumer yesterday was a low point in the history of the Senate. I thought Sherrod Brown insulting Tom Cotton, who has carried a rifle, when Sherrod Brown has only carried a briefcase for the last 40 years, he insulted him on the floor of the Senate. What the hell is happening to the Senate?
Let me tell you, it's dysfunctional. People don't get along. I mean, the Democrats, a lot of them they won't even talk to me because I won't agree to their stuff. I mean, it's just liberal politics. They don't care about the public anymore. They've lost it.
All right, talk to me a little bit about Florida, Senator. I think Ron DeSantis is doing a great job, but we obviously still have social distancing issues with some people who are using the beach. I know you were famous, along with Chris Christie, for hurricane preparedness. What do we have to do to get through to these people?
First off, we all have to keep talking to them. We have to talk to everybody, and we got to explain what you just did might kill your grandmother. What you just did might kill a coworker. And what you just did might hurt somebody else. And so we've got to be very direct at what these individuals are doing and hold them accountable.
And do you think that's effective? Is it being effectively communicated by the president in his press conferences?
Well, look, I think the president is out there talking every day about what we ought to be doing. I put out a plan of how to get. We've got to give some people some hope. I believe in this country. I believe we're going to get past this, but we've got to give people hope. I put out a plan last week that said if we do social distancing, if we quarantine everybody that's either tested positive or been around somebody that's tested positive, we get a robust testing system. We shut down the airports, shut down the borders. give people, doctors, the ability to use whatever drugs have been approved by FDA. I think we're going to get past this pretty quickly because it has to go through a body. If you don't get it, you can't give it to anybody else. So stay home if you can. But we also got to keep this economy going. People cannot just go with no money.
I agree. Senator Scott, good luck today. Remember, liquidity resides in those retirement accounts. Let people use them. They'd rather make up their retirement later and save their business today. Thank you, Senator.
I agree.
I also have to tell people out there, no matter how hard you've got it, the people in the world are going to have it so much worse. I mean, Venezuela, pray for Venezuela. They got nothing. They've had socialism for 20 years. They got nothing. They got no doctors that are equipped. They got no virus. They got no medical care. They're without hope. At least in Guatemala, there is food for the poor. And in other places like Haiti, there is food for the poor. Can you spare $10 or $25 or $50? We've raised $55,000 from this audience during this time. God bless you. Thank you. Feed Starving Children banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. $27 a month. We'll feed a family of 4 and give them clean water for life. You can also call 855-359-4673. 855-359-HOPE. Right now to help my Food for the Poor campaign. Right now. I also want to tell you about Honor Bound Coffee because right now military families are reeling. Deployments are screwed up. The detailers or the people that move people around are overwhelmed. A lot of military families are not going to get back together again as soon as they thought. A lot are going to have extended deployments. A lot are going to get home sooner, but it's just chaos. HonorBoundCoffee.com. 100% of the profits of every sip of coffee you have go to support those military families. They're lining up groups. They got the Military Wise on their list. They got the Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund. Get your coffee from HonorBoundCoffee.com. It's great coffee. 4 different brews, 4 different grinds. It's great coffee. Best coffee in America. But 100% of the profits of Honor Bound Coffee go to support military families. Please help them. I mentioned earlier, keeping me on the radio, the sponsor, ReliefFactor.com. I got great sponsors. Use them, please. I've been here for 20 years, Stan. I signed on for another 8. I hope every day of those 8 years is a ReliefFactor.com day because it's such a wonderful product. Icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. Support for the temporary relief of minor aches and pains. Keeps you moving, keeps you up and down the stairs, keeps you running, walking, exercising, lifting in your house, doing Pilates on your mat. You know, you double dog down yoga people, I know who you are. ReliefFactor.com is for you as well. It's for anyone who's commuting still long distances, as many of you are. Your commute did not get shorter, even though the traffic got easier. May have gotten faster, didn't get shorter. Still might be a long one. Still might hurt your back or your knee. ReliefFactor.com is for you. And just a public service announcement for my Catholic friends. Catholic Information Center of D.C. is a great resource, CICDC.org. CICDC.org. The closest tabernacle to the White House. Great pastor, Father Charles. CICDC.org. Go check that out as well. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, joined now by United States Senator Tom Cotton. Good morning, Senator. Good morning, Senator.
Morning.
Senator, I've broadcast through national crises like 9/11, Katrina, 2008, and I've been on the air through political earthquakes like Justice Thomas and Kavanaugh confirmations, the elections of 2000 and 16. Never have those two types of stories intersected. A national crisis, an international crisis, and Democrats holding America hostage. What is going on?
Hugh, unfortunately, this country faces a pandemic crisis unlike anything we've seen in 100 years. And we're losing lives. Millions of people are losing their jobs. We're seeing their retirement savings evaporate. That the Democrats are taking this opportunity to try to achieve an ideological wish list. As you saw yesterday, Nancy Pelosi released a 1,400-page bill, 1,400 pages cobbled together in just a day, more than 3 times the length of our bill, that would do things like require airlines to be carbon neutral, which I bet doesn't apply to Nancy Pelosi's private plane, or give $35 million to an opera house in Washington, D.C., while restaurants are shut all across the country, or mandate all kinds of sweeping changes to our voting rules. That's from the partisan geniuses who couldn't even count their own votes in the Iowa Democratic caucuses. This is the kind of political games that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are playing, while another 125 people just died overnight in New York City. It is disgraceful, and it has to stop today.
Senator, I got a text from a great guy in Hollywood a minute ago. I mentor an 18-year-old former foster kid, high school graduate, working hard with a full-time job as a cabinet maker, got laid off today due to virus. He didn't file a 2018 tax form since he was 16 then. So, with the current relief bill, what does he do for food and rent at this point?
So in addition to the direct cash payments, which you're right are based on 2018 tax returns, Hugh, we have increased unemployment significantly, a $600 increase across the board for every state's benefit. That will go on for at least 3 months in the bill that Senator McConnell introduced. I've advocated that we should extend it for more months if necessary to get through this crisis. But anyone who has been employed and who has been laid off should go to their state unemployment insurance system, preferably online or on phone, which every state has, and file a claim for benefits. That is not pegged to your historic tax returns. It is pegged to the job that you had before this crisis started.
Is that in the McConnell bill?
Yes, it's been in the McConnell bill from the very beginning. Hugh, a week ago, I was advocating both kinds of payments because I knew that our families would be desperate to get money into their hands as millions of people are losing their jobs because of this pandemic. Both tax rebates that are based on tax filings from 2018, the tax filings we have, and increased unemployment payments. So to give you a sense, Hugh, the average unemployment payment in Arkansas is about $400 a month, plus or minus $40. $600 more per month means that people up to about $50,000 a year will have their income matched for the next 3 or 4 months, wherever we end up settling.
Is it $600 per month or per week, Senator?
Per week. I'm sorry, per week.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah,
$400 per week is the average benefit in Arkansas right now. Other states vary, but $600 increase across the board in all states per week means that people into the $40,000 or $50,000 range will have their income matched for these next few weeks, these next vital few weeks when we know people can't work, when they can't earn an income. This is not a permanent program. This is not a permanent expansion of the government. These are emergency matters.
So Senator,
unlike anything we faced.
I hesitate to say this, but it is pitiless. Do the Democrats not have a heart? Do they not know what? As Susan Collins talked about her Lewiston diner, I know what's going on. Do they not know? Do they not care?
Hugh, as Rahm Emanuel, a former Democratic leader in Congress, and Barack Obama's chief of staff said, never let a crisis go to waste, and that's what they're doing.
All right, last question. I was watching yesterday. I'm a son of Ohio. I want to apologize on behalf of the state. Sherrod Brown personally insulted you yesterday. What did you think when he did that?
Well, first off, I didn't hear him, Hugh. And second, that's the kind of ad hominem attack that Sherrod Brown and Democrats make when they don't have an argument on the merits, which they don't have.
Chris Murphy also said that they had been cut out of the legislative drafting. Now, I believe, because I talked to Senators Grassley and Thune yesterday, that's simply not true. Were they cut out?
Totally false, Hugh. Senator McConnell convened a large group of Democrats and Republicans on Friday, and they worked carefully and long hours throughout the weekend.
Senator, are you an optimist that that the Democrats will realize they've set their own house on fire politically today? Are you an optimist we will get the rescue package moving?
Given the time I heard from the Senate Democrats yesterday, both in their floor speeches and privately, I think they realized that Chuck Schumer will march them into a box in a time of emergency.
All right, you better go take care of those kids like everybody else in America. It's a tough time for young parents. Thank you, Senator Cotton. Godspeed. Keep marching on. He's speaking truth to power. Next week we'll talk about the Communist Party of China because the CPC is really, they are responsible. They are responsible for this catastrophe. And when we get a chance, when Americans, Democrats, stop holding America hostage, we will turn to accountability. And it begins in the Communist Party of China. I'll be right back, America. Hour number 3, straight ahead. The Surgeon General of the United States joins me. Do not miss that conversation.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show brought to you by Sierra Pacific Mortgage. For more info, call 888-888-1172.
Morning, Glory, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Thank you for joining me. I am joined by the United States Surgeon General, Admiral Dr. Jerome Adams. Admiral Adams, welcome. It's great to have you on the program. Thank you for all you have been doing.
Great to talk with you again, Hugh. I tell you, the last time we talked about opioids, now it's coronavirus. Hopefully one time we can talk about something that's positive and that's going well in this country. But I tell you, we're in day 9 of our 15 days to stop the spread push, and to their credit, many people and places are following the guidelines. They're hunkering down. But what I want everyone to understand is that you're only 2 weeks away from being New York City. 2 weeks ago, New York City had less than 20 cases, and now they have an attack rate equivalent to Italy. And it's why we need everyone to be taking aggressive steps and not waiting until we see more cases before they decide to stay at home.
Thank you for that message, Admiral. How is your health? How is your family's health?
Well, thank you for asking about that. It's tough. I've got 3 kids at home, and I'm trying to keep my wife and kids from killing each other. We're trying to stay busy. One of the most important things I tell people is that being socially distanced doesn't mean you have to be socially disengaged. So they're going out and they're hiking. They're staying 6 feet apart. We're trying to keep a schedule around the house. We're trying to do the things that you need to do to stay mentally and physically healthy, because we know the healthier you are, the more resistant you will be to the complications of coronavirus.
Excellent. Now, I'm going to plunge into some new drug application technical stuff that as journalists I need to know, and I think the country needs to know. Before I do that, a couple of quick process questions. When I see you up in front, and Ambassador Birx and Dr. Fauci, I'm cheered. I never want to see all 3 of you together because I never want you to get each other infected. Who is deciding who shows up when for the daily briefings?
Well, that's a great question, and it's funny because we can't win. When one of us is missing, the media asks, where's Dr. Fauci? Where's Dr. Adams? Where's Dr. Birx? But when we're all up there together, everyone says we're not modeling good behavior. It's important for people to know that the White House checks all of us for symptoms and for temperature before we come in. And we are doctors. We will definitely, as Ambassador Birx did this weekend, stay at home if we at all feel that there is a concern. But we decide based on the news of the day and what we think people need to know. So, for instance, last week, we knew that there was a potential shortage of blood, and we felt that I was the best messenger. So I was up there telling America it's still safe to go out and give blood. When we need to talk about medications and the virus itself, you want Tony Fauci, who's the number 1 person in the world, to talk about the virus. And so we pick and choose based on who's at need, but also to try to better practice social distancing.
I appreciated the message on the blood drive. The Nixon Foundation, of which I'm also the head, will be running 4 as a response to your request that we do so because we have the facility, and I hope everyone else in America. Now, let me ask you about 2 things. I spent 2 hours talking to a retired PhD toxicologist who had left Big Pharma 2 years ago on Saturday to try and get smart. I know how much I don't know, but it also occurred to me, do you have a registry of recently retired toxicologists and epidemiologists, and are you considering gathering them someplace remote from D.C. to get their collective wisdom on this?
Absolutely. Believe you me, I am getting emails, texts, phone calls, LinkedIn from people, colleagues all over the country and all over the world. Tony Fauci has that network of people. He's been doing this since back before HIV. And so we are listening to people. We're trying to bring the best advice together. We are really the conduits for that information. Please don't think, America, that it's just me and Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci. They're deciding everything. It's really taking the best medical information. And Dr. Birx has been really good at making sure every task force meeting starts with a review of the latest scientific information.
Now, I have only one recommendation, and it's on behalf of me and my friends in the media. Would you and Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci run a seminar on clinical trials and safety testing, both on the efficacy of the treatments and the long-term impacts of COVID interventions, so that we are smarter? We're not very smart about this. People are asking dumb questions all the time. They need a couple of hours education. Will somebody give it to us collectively?
I don't know if you've been listening in on our task force meetings or not, Hugh, but that's exactly what we've been talking about trying to do moving forward. Once we can get into a steady groove, and it's important for people to know that us going to FEMA 1 level of activation, which the president did earlier this week, brings in new resources. Every state has activated their emergency operations center at the request of the president, and that then frees us up to be able to do more of the educational things that we would like to do for the community. So the answer is yes, we are looking at trying to figure out how to get the information out to the American people so they can make informed decisions. And the president has said he's hopeful these medications will work. We're hopeful these medications will work. And big trial starting today in New York City. But we also need to collect the data. So it's trust, but also make sure we gather the data to protect people. And please, people, do not drink fish tank cleaner. We are not out there telling people to get this stuff any way that you can, because it can be dangerous and poisonous to you, particularly if it's not from a medical doctor or a pharmacy. But we hope to have more information in the next coming days and weeks about how things are going in New York.
Now, Doctor, I'm at clinicaltrials.gov. There are 119 different clinical trials underway right now. How are you prioritizing these by those that can be completed more rapidly, those with a more immediate, obvious impact, or those designed for emergency critical care patients?
Well, there's a couple of things. There is great technology out there in the lab, and Dr. Fauci, when he's not on the podium, he's at NIH still working on vaccines and working on therapeutics, where they can test hundreds or thousands of different products at one time to see if they work. So you can do it in the lab. That's not the same as doing it in a human. One of the bright spots to this unfortunate outbreak being global is that we're seeing trials in Italy, trials in China, trials in South Korea, and we're constantly getting this information back in so that we can learn from what's worked. And one thing that has worked is social distancing. And I want people to understand this. There's good news here. The good news is that China is reopening their country 6 to 8 weeks of really being aggressive with social distancing, with staying at home, with limiting large gatherings, and their country is opening back up again. That's the good news. We want to be like China. We don't want to be like Italy, where cases are still going up. And unfortunately, New York has an attack rate that is equivalent to Italy. So country or cities and states across America need to decide, do we want to be like China or do we want to be like Italy? And if we want to be like China, we need to lean into the next 6 days of this 15 days to stop the spread initiative. That's a best practice we've learned from across the country.
I'm back to. I want to go back to science, though, Doctor. There are four categories, as I understand it: previously approved small molecules, previously approved biologics, new small molecules, and new biologics. Non-approved ones, non-approved small molecules. Which one do you think has the most promise right now for treating patients?
Well, the previously approved non-biologics seem to have the most promise only because we have the most experience with them. It's one thing to say a single person actually had a better outcome. It's another thing to say that we want to scale this up to massive numbers of people and we expect that it will be safe. And so when you look at drugs like hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine, those are drugs that we've seen in people for a long period of time, for decades, and so we know that they have a safety profile that is acceptable. When you talk about those other drugs that haven't been around as long or have not been approved at all, those are going to be a little bit harder, and we're going to be looking at months to even years before we can say with certainty that they are safe in people. So that's important for people to know.
There is this clinical trial of chloroquine and erythromycin on COVID-19 patients that both the governor and the Governor Cuomo and President Trump seem optimistic about. Do you share their optimism? And when would a scientist like you, a doctor like you, pronounce a clinical trial like that satisfactory to your best practices level?
Well, I share their hope. And we have to remember, when you go back to the HIV days, we were in the same situation. We were trying things over and over and over again because the other option was just letting people die. And so from a compassionate use standpoint, I'm hopeful, but we need to make sure. We've seen this play out over and over again in history where something looks promising, but it ended up either not working or harming people. But also important to remember, and people don't get this, you are not going to treat your way out of this crisis. You need to prevent people from getting it and prevent the spread. The best treatment is actually prevention. And while we focus on supplies, while we focus on therapeutics, while we focus on developing a vaccine, we also need to focus on the tried and true methods of hand washing, social distancing, staying at home to prevent the spread in the first place. Because I'd rather not get COVID in the first place than to get it and have to rely on an experimental drug.
100% agree, Doctor. But I'm trying to establish, because the task force never gets this question, is there a group that is prioritizing trials and following it ruthlessly to identify the most efficacious and inform the task force of these 119 trials, which ones are most promising, and couple it with, is the FDA and the CDC breaking down regulatory barriers that would normally inhibit the rapid distribution of anything deemed efficacious by the scientific community?
So the very specific answers to your question are absolutely. Like I said, Tony Fauci's group at NIH is looking at all of these things. We also know that there's going to be a big trial starting in New York today where they're going to make the drug available, and we're going to be tracking that very closely to find out whether or not some of these new combinations that people are talking about actually work. And as far as the FDA is concerned, oh my gosh, they have literally removed every barrier in record time for testing, for the people to be able to try new treatments on a compassionate use basis, or approval of vaccine trials. It has been, and when I say record, I mean these are things that usually take years, and we're doing them in months or days, sometimes hours. They approved a test for testing coronavirus in 5 hours. That's something that usually takes well over a year to get done. So yes, the FDA has removed every barrier. If something works, we want to find out as soon as possible.
Are the regimens being studied, being used in the different hospitals across standardized protocols so that the drugs will yield clinical results applicable across large populations?
Well, that's what we're seeing happen in New York right now. And you bring up an important point. One of the good things about people doing it all over the world is you get to see it done multiple different ways. One of the bad things about it is you can't compare apples to oranges. And so what's going on in New York is they're going to be using a standard drug combination and again, standard dosages so that we can actually say with certainty, hopefully in a few days to weeks, that, hey, this is promising and we should do more of it, or it's not really giving us the results we want.
Is that data being shared on access platforms to scientific professionals so that the international power of science, which is enormous if it's harnessed, Doctor, is it all coming to bear on the same data sets, and do those data sets have similarities that allow them to be compared and contrasted?
Well, the medical publication field has been tremendous throughout this. We're getting data out of China, South Korea, Singapore, Italy, literally by the day. And folks are really open sourcing this information, not holding on to this data to try to make sure they can get their promotion to PhD. I've been very impressed, and the information that comes out of New York will be made available not just to the rest of the country, but to the rest of the world as soon as something either promising or something that looks like it's harmful to people is noted.
So, Doctor, I want to close. I hear you on social distancing. We need to do it. I keep sending that message. Give the public some sense of the treatment horizon that you see. How optimistic are you that we will find interventions that would at least reduce the time on ventilator so that we can increase the capacity of ventilator?
So let's go backwards. Vaccine is still about a year off because you need to make sure before you massively scale up a vaccine, you test. Therapeutics, when you talk about biologics, when you talk about non-approved drugs, we're still looking at summertime before you would have something like that where we feel comfortable. When you look at pre-approved drugs, if the trial in New York is efficacious and it proves to be safe in large numbers of people, because just because the drug is safe in one group of people with a disease doesn't mean it's safe in another group. But if it looks efficacious and safe, you could be talking about just a couple of weeks before we're telling the rest of the world you should be doing something like this. But we don't want to hang our hat on that. Right now, we don't want places to become the next New York City, and the most effective thing we can do is wash our hands and social distance. And I just got to give you a shout out, Hugh, because you mentioned what you were doing to promote blood donations, and I wanted to say to you, you literally have saved lives by doing that. One blood donation can save up to 3 people, and it's something positive we can do mentally while we're at home and feeling isolated.
Doctor, we are going to do that 4 times in the next couple of weeks at the Nixon Foundation, Nixon Library in Yorba Linda, and I'm sure other Americans will step up. Surgeon General Jerome Adams, keep coming back, Admiral. We need you, and I appreciate your being on that stage every night, and I'm glad you cleared up that we should not read into your absence anything.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hugh, for all you do, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks, Admiral. Yep. Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt. Here's the conclusion of my conversation with the United States Surgeon General, Admiral Dr. Jerome Adams. Is there a group that is prioritizing trials and following it ruthlessly to identify the most efficacious and inform the task force of these 119 trials, which ones are most promising, and couple it with, is the FDA and the CDC breaking down regulatory barriers that would normally inhibit the rapid distribution of anything deemed efficacious by the scientific community?
So the very specific answer to your question are absolutely. Like I said, Tony Fauci's group at NIH is looking at all of these things. We also know that there's going to be a big trial starting in New York today where they're going to make the drug available, and we're going to be tracking that very closely to find out whether or not some of these new combinations that people are talking about actually work. And as far as the FDA is concerned, oh my gosh, they have literally removed every barrier in record time for testing, for the people to be able to try new treatments on a compassionate use basis, or approval of vaccine trials. It has been, and when I say record, I mean these are things that usually take years, and we're doing them in months or days, sometimes hours. They approved a test for testing coronavirus in 5 hours. That's something that usually takes well over a year to get done. So yes, the FDA has removed every barrier. If something works, we want to find out as soon as possible.
Are the regimens being studied, being used in the different hospitals across standardized protocols so that the drugs will yield clinical results applicable across large populations?
Well, that's what we're seeing happen in New York right now. And you bring up an important point. One of the good things about people doing it all over the world is you get to see it done multiple different ways. One of the bad things about it is you can't compare apples to oranges. And so what's going on in New York is they're going to be using a standard drug combination and again, standard dosages so that we can actually say with certainty, hopefully in a few days to weeks, that, hey, this is promising and we should do more of it, or it's not really giving us the results we want.
Is that data being shared on access platforms to scientific professionals so that the international power of science, which is enormous if it's harnessed, Doctor, is it all coming to bear on the same data sets, and do those data sets have similarities that allow them to be compared and contrasted?
Well, the medical publication field has been tremendous throughout this. We're getting data out of China, South Korea, Singapore, Italy, literally by the day. And folks are really open sourcing this information, not holding on to this data to try to make sure they can get their promotion to PhD. I've been very impressed, and the information that comes out of New York will be made available not just to the rest of the country, but to the rest of the world as soon as something either promising or something that looks like it's harmful to people is noted.
So, Doctor, I want to close. I hear you on social distancing. We need to do it. I keep sending that message. Give the public some sense of the treatment horizon that you see. How optimistic are you that we will find interventions that would at least reduce the time on ventilator so that we can increase the capacity of ventilator?
So let's go backwards. Vaccine is still about a year off because you need to make sure before you massively scale up a vaccine, you test. Therapeutics, when you talk about biologics, when you talk about non-approved drugs, we're still looking at summertime before you would have something like that where we feel comfortable. When you look at pre-approved drugs, if the trial in New York is efficacious and it proves to be safe in large numbers of people, because just because the drug is safe in one group of people with a disease doesn't mean it's safe in another group. But if it looks efficacious and safe, you could be talking about just a couple of weeks before we're telling the rest of the world you should be doing something like this. But we don't want to hang our hat on that. Right now, we don't want places to become the next New York City, and the most effective thing we can do is wash our hands and social distance. And I just got to give you a shout out, Hugh, because you mentioned what you were doing to promote blood donations, and I wanted to say to you, you literally have saved lives by doing that. One blood donation can save up to 3 people, and it's something positive we can do mentally while we're at home and feeling isolated.
Doctor, we are going to do that 4 times in the next couple of weeks at the Nixon Foundation, Nixon Library in Yorba Linda, and I'm sure other Americans will step up. Surgeon General Jerome Adams, keep coming back, Admiral. We need you, and I appreciate your being on that stage every night, and I'm glad you cleared up that we should not read into your absence anything.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hugh, for all you do, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks, Admiral. He's a great American. Do what he says. Stay away from people. Stay in your house. Get your exercise. Stay healthy, but social distance. I'm coming right back. Don't forget Food for the Poor. I need you to go to the Feed Starving Families button at the top of HughHewitt.com and then find a blood drive. I'll be right back with Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland. Stay tuned.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show brought to you by Sierra Pacific Mortgage. For more info, call 888-888-1172.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, standing by for Maryland Governor Larry Hogan. Let me do a market update brought to you by andrewandtodd.com. That's a website. You go there to get in line and get ready to refinance when rates stabilize, get all your paperwork done, get right up to the starting line. They will not lock you in until the loan is best for you, but you're going to need some money, and you might have to use your house as a bank if that's you. And especially if you're a veteran, you get 100% of the money out of your house. andrewandtodd.com. If you're a small business owner and you own your restaurant, you got to get money out of the restaurant, and you own the property, go to andrewandtodd.com. I understand the need is for liquidity. Congress is stalled. andrewandtodd.com are not stalled. They're with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. They are lenders. You can call them direct, 888-888-1172, and they will help. You can trust them. The Dow closed down 582 points yesterday. The Nasdaq was off 18, and the S&P was down 67 points as a result of obstruction by Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, holding America hostage. This morning, Japan is up 7%. Hong Kong is up 4.5%. England is all up 4%. Germany is up almost 5.5%, more actually. Gold is up 6%. Oil is up 2%. What will happen with the markets today? It depends on whether or not Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi release the hostage taking. I just do not know if they will. They could flood the market with liquidity if they'll pass the McConnell bill that was negotiated in good bipartisan faith over the weekend and then put on hold by Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi over the weekend. I hope, I pray they stop this. I have covered national crises from 9/11 to Katrina to 2008 financial panic, and I've covered political confrontations that are 9-0 on the Richter scale. They've always been different story sets. People come together. They do not politicize crises, but for whatever reason, Democrats in Congress have done so, not Democrats in state houses. Really, the governors have been the front line here working with the president and the vice president and the task force. They've been getting it done. Please, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, have a heart for these people. These businesses are dying. People are losing their jobs. They need this rescue package. They needed it Monday. They've got to have it today. Jim McGovern, Democrat, said we'll vote on it remotely. That crazy bill that Speaker Pelosi unveiled yesterday, that wish list of crazy stuff, just crazy stuff. Diversity on corporate boards. People are laid off. I told you I got a note from a good, trusted friend, great Christian man in L.A. in the business, mentoring an 18-year-old cabinet maker. He didn't file a return in 2018. I'm joined now by Governor Larry Hogan, one of the superstars of this. Governor Hogan, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show. I live across the river, but I admire your work greatly.
Well, thank you very much, Hugh. We're sorry you're on the wrong side of the river, but we're happy to have you as a neighbor.
Well, I look forward to talking to you in calmer times about the forthcoming book, Still Standing, because I think your story is inspiring. And for Terp, you know, I really find it contradictory. I'm an Ohio State fan, and Urban Meyer is listening. I'm still not sure we should have let you into the Big Ten, but I want to read Still Standing.
Hugh, to make it even worse, I shouldn't tell you this at the start of the interview, but I have two daughters that went to the University of Michigan, so that probably ruined the whole thing.
Well, Urban Meyer just hung up. I mean, I just lost a listener in Columbus. He's on every morning. Honest to goodness, Governor, you're killing my audience. But
I'm sorry.
I went to the University of Michigan Law School, so they should treat it like the Vikings treated England. Go in, get whatever's worth having, and get out. That's all I can tell you.
Well, they did. They came back home. So
all right, let me get to the good stuff. There's a part of this crisis that people haven't explored, and you're good for this. The task force talks to the governors. How does that happen? Who runs the call? How is it working?
Well, it's a great question, and I think it's one of the things that's working the best in this whole thing. And it's been chaired by the vice president, and Mike Pence, having been a former governor, I think he really understands the role of the governors in this. We're on the front lines. We're each dealing with a somewhat different situation in each of our states, but the communication with the governors is critically important. And I believe we've had 5 different teleconferences with the vice president. Two of them, the president joined in. And we had most of the leadership of this entire fight at the federal level. So, along with a huge participation in the governors, including the governors of the territories. And so, in some cases, we've had 52, 54 total governors on the call, almost everybody. And we've had these things every couple of days, and the information being shared back and forth both ways has been really helpful. Number one, we're getting the most up-to-date information from the president and the vice president and all of his team, and they got a really smart team of people that are all working very, very hard on this situation. But they're also getting direct input and frank input from the governors about their needs and about their concerns and about the things that we're dealing with out on the front lines. And so it's been really helpful, and I want to particularly compliment the president for picking and choosing Mike Pence to head this effort up, and I want to compliment the vice president for his leadership. He's been terrific. I think he was really made for this, built for this, and he's put a terrific team around himself. And I've had numerous personal calls with him on the weekends and the evenings, and I'm the chairman of the National Governors Association, so I've been helping to lead some of those calls and trying to coordinate all of the governors on both sides of the aisle from across the country, and we've kind of pulled together lots of different frustrations and concerns and demands and issues and requests from all these folks, and kind of boiled them down into some key things that we wanted to bring to the administration in a more cohesive, comprehensive manner. We did that last week, and they're in the process of attempting to address all of them. I think it's been look, this is a very, very difficult situation, Hugh, and it is going to take everyone at the federal, state, and local level, and the private sector all working together. And so I think that's been a big part of it. The communication, I've never seen anything like it.
Now, Governor Hogan, I told this to Dr. Fauci last week, and he demurred, but I'm going to emphasize it again. I want everyone to take extraordinary notes, because as I read John Barry's The Great Influenza, 1918 to 1920, the pandemic, they lacked a lot of record of what people did and didn't do, and that would have informed us better. And the next pandemic, and there will be another one, I hope it's another 100 years, but there will be another one, will be informed by what you and your colleagues do. Is anyone writing it down?
Well, I sure hope so. I'll tell you what, it's this is such a rapidly escalating situation that we're drinking from a fire hose. Hugh, you wouldn't believe the pace at which this is happening. Things that we never would have imagined making decisions on, or we're making decisions on. Things that seem like they were a month ago, it was just yesterday, and it's not changing week by week or hour by hour, but almost minute by minute. So I haven't had a chance. I've got things scribbled all over notepads just from the decision making, but I don't have any time to write it down. I think there are probably some good folks that are taking some notes and documenting, because we are going to learn from this. And Dr. Fauci is a brilliant guy who he came and spoke to all the governors at the National Governors Association the first week in February, and kind of gave us some tremendous wisdom for all the governors back then. And I think he's been speaking with the most clarity and the most intelligence and the most information on this entire topic for a long time. I have tremendous respect for him and his team.
Yeah. Now, tough questions, Governor. The subtitle of your forthcoming book says Surviving Cancer, Riots, and the Toxic Politics That Divide America. Mm-hmm. I will not tell you which state official told me this. They are worried about unrest. They are planning. Are you?
Well, sure. It's one of the things that one of the many things that are on our radar screen just to watch out for. It's not at the very top of the list, because our first top of our list is, for example, this morning I'm going to Baltimore to work with the National Guard and FEMA and the University of Maryland Medical System and Johns Hopkins to stand up a 250-bed hospital in the Baltimore Convention Center. And we're, working on trying to distribute food to school kids who are out of school and not able to, don't have the opportunity to eat. So we're focused on immediate health and life-saving things, but absolutely security is one of the things. I called up 2,200 members of the National Guard They're doing a lot of humanitarian functions, like assisting with the hospitals, assisting with the delivery and logistics and supplies, and but they're also we have a security capability. We've called up a 250 member mobile field force of the Maryland State Police, and we're in constant communication with all of our local law enforcement officers. So, as you know, 90 days after I became governor, I had called up the Guard and 1,000 extra police officers, 4,000 Guard members to keep the peace and restore calm and law and order to Baltimore City. If we have such a situation again, we'll certainly be ready to handle that crisis.
And how do you assess the performance of the president?
I think the president, lately, I think the president has been his messaging has been much better than it was earlier on. I was disappointed in some of the early on a few weeks ago when he was saying, it wasn't any big deal, and that everybody should relax. I thought that was a little off message because his team was saying just the opposite. But I'll tell you, recently he's really been on top of it and changing that tune substantially. But I think he's in many ways risen to the occasion. He's got wonderful, strong people around him, starting with the vice president and Ambassador Birx and guys like Fauci and all of his cabinet leaders. And but it's a wartime thing right now. I mean, it's a whole different way of governing, and it takes a whole different set of skills. And I think
and Governor, last question, because I'm running out of time. Nancy Pelosi is from Baltimore.
Yeah.
She is holding up a rescue package. Right. Do you have a message for her?
I do. Look, I have said very strongly we have to put aside any kind of partisan politics. Both sides do. Right now, it's being held up in the House by the Democratic leaders in the House. This is no time for Republicans and Democrats. And no time for divisive and dysfunctional politics. This is a time for all Americans to come together to help to save the lives of thousands of people and to get these things moving, get our economy back on track. So my message would be to get this thing done.
Governor Larry Hogan, keep coming back. Good luck with standing up the hospital today. Admire what you're doing. Look forward to talking to you about Still Standing when it comes out. And you'll have an epilogue to write for the paperback edition, that's for sure.
There you go. Okay, well, thank you, Hugh.
Thank you, Governor. Don't go anywhere, America. I'll be right back. I'm going to conclude with another United States Senator, Martha McSally, about this America held hostage by the Democrats. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it, but I can believe. In ReliefFactor.com, I took it in the first hour. I tell you about in hours 2 and 3. I do it every day. It's if you're watching on the Universe, if you're a member of the Universe, which you should be. Subscription's very inexpensive. You get so much extra stuff. You get the after show at 8 p.m. every night in the East, 5 p.m. in the West. ReliefFactor.com. I'm going to need some when Dwayne beats me up because I broke the antenna on my new Mini Comrex. Just did it. Snapped it off while I was talking to Larry Hogan. He's going to be mad at me. When he's dumb thumping me, I'm going to need my ReliefFactor.com for the support for the temporary relief of minor aches and pains. Seriously, he's going to do me harm. He really is when he finds out what I did. Don't go anywhere, though, except to ReliefFactor.com. $19.95 is the 3-week starter pack. And you won't get thumped, but if you're out there doing new walking, new running, new exercise, you will have new muscle groups engaged. You will need ReliefFactor.com. Subscribe today. Come back for Senator McSally. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, joined now by United States Senator Martha McSally of the great state of Arizona. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Hugh. How are you?
Well, I'd be a lot better if I was not being held hostage in my capacity of CEO by Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. Will that end today? I've got him, please. I've got to know what's going to happen to him.
Hugh, I'm disgusted. It better end today. We need the rank and file Democrats who helped craft this bill show some courage, stand up to Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and tell them they're going to vote yes, and we're going to get this relief to American workers and families and small businesses right now. It's disgusting what has happened over the last few days.
Senator Murphy stood up on the floor and said he wasn't involved in the crafting of the bill. I challenged him on Twitter. He said, why would I lie? Were Democrats involved in the crafting of the bill?
Yes, they were. Look, you don't want 100 Democrats sitting around with a whiteboard. So what we did is we used the committee structure. We had 4 main pillars. We had the chairman and the ranking members plus other members of that committee involved in small groups. Each of us gave our inputs. They were allowed to on their side as well. This was a bipartisan bill, and we were almost there. And look, there was give and take, like you would expect to have happen. There were things that we had to plus up for getting them on board. There were things we had to hold the line on with, ideas that were unsustainable and had nothing to do with this crisis. And we worked through it because there's this sense of urgency for Americans, for Arizonans who have lost their jobs, who are wondering where their meals are going to come from, who are the healthcare workers trying to figure out how to care for their kids and go care for their patients. When Nancy Pelosi landed in town, she and Chuck Schumer just blew the whole thing up. And it's unsustainable what they're doing. It's out of touch with what's happening out there in America right now. And the grin I saw Chuck Schumer have on his face when I presided at midnight on Sunday night, and he refused to let us come in yesterday morning, and he was just off camera. I was the only one who could see him. And he just had this, I can't swear, but this grin on his face that just nauseated and infuriated me that he was playing a game with Americans, workers, families, and small business the way he is. It has to stop today.
Senator McSally, I believe everybody in America knows we're being held hostage by Democrats for partisan reasons. I don't think, you can turn on MSNBC and find talking heads saying, oh, everything's fine, but the country knows. Do the Democrats know that we know?
I think they're starting to. Again, the rank and file Democrats who helped craft this bill, who are hearing from their small businesses, who are hearing from constituents, who are hearing for people screaming out for help and relief quickly. These checks that we're sending out to a family of 4 of $3,400, they need now. These small businesses who need access to cash to keep people on their payroll and to stop from going under so that there's actually businesses for people to work at when we get on the other side, they need help now. So my prayer is that the rank and file Democrats stand up and show some courage this morning. I don't care where they are in the negotiations at this point. This is a good bill. It's time to vote again, and it's time to pressure the Democrats to vote yes.
What time will the bill come for moving to the bill? There's a 60-vote measure to move to the bill.
Right, there is, but with consent, if everybody agrees, we can vote on the final bill right now. Like, if they would stop obstructing. We're doing these procedural votes because Chuck Schumer is demanding that because he refuses to consent. Look, I've only been here a little over a year. This place is, its own little animal. But with agreement and consent, we can vote on this as soon as possible. They're dragging it out with these procedural votes.
Do they know? Does Kristen Sinema, who you ran against and has been trying to, chart a new course of being just a somewhat lefty person, does she know that small businesses are closing all over Arizona because of what they did on Sunday?
I'm sure she's hearing from the same constituents we are. So is everybody else around the country. These, again, rank and file Democrats who've been here for a short time or a long time, they know what's happening out there and they know what needs to be done. This is a pro-worker, pro-family, pro-small business relief. Their talking points they parroted yesterday are totally out of touch. And oh, by the way, the larger businesses also need to stay open and have some cash to pay their workers. What we don't want is people standing in line at the unemployment office for months on end and have no jobs when we get past this pandemic, which we will. businesses like PetSmart and Best Western that are headquartered in Arizona, they have workers in our neighborhood too, and we want them to stay on the payrolls during this unprecedented,
Martha
shutdown of
McSally,
our
a last
economy.
suggestion. There are trillions of dollars in retirement accounts. People cannot use them even to keep their businesses open because of the prohibitive penalties and taxation. Can we flat tax withdrawals? Can we let them get their money?
So this is part of our bill: is to stop any penalties from withdrawing money. It's to not have minimum withdrawals for our seniors. This is all a part of our bill. Relief for people, relief for retirees, relief in every way we can, so that we can get through this as a country. It's time for us to vote, Hugh. We have to get this passed.
Martha McSally, it is great to talk to you. Thank you, Senator. We'll keep checking in for the great state of Arizona. People listening on AM 960 in Phoenix know you're doing a great job for them. My affiliate in Tucson, they know that, but the whole country knows. Right now, we are being held hostage by Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. Call the Capitol switchboard 202-224-3121. Find a Democrat. Do not be profane. Do not be volatile. Be calm. Be persistent. Be American. And ask them to do the same. I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, General Isimo. Thanks all of you for listening to The Hugh Hewitt Show.